Hello and welcome to another video tutorial Monday. This week I will be showing you how to start with a white card and end up with a beautiful creation using all sorts of distress inks and some different techniques along the way. I've been really inspired by Jill Foster lately, which you can go to her blog at stampinginspiredby.blogspot.com. I'll have that in the subbar and in my blog post. And she does most of her cards starting out with completely white cardstock. So I wanted to try that today because I think that's really cool. So what I'm planning on doing is, this is going to be my main piece here. This will be my card base. And I'm going to stamp this stamp on it and then color it in with some distress ink. So let's get started. So first, going to stamp it using my Memento black ink. Alright, so we have a pretty good image there. I'm just going to set this off to the side. And actually, while I'm at it, before I set that off to the side, I'm going to stamp it on this type paper as well. It doesn't have to be perfect, but I'm probably going to mask that area. So what I'm going to do is start out by coloring the entire sheet of paper. And for this, I will get out, this is my little Ranger craft mat. I have the mini one because I do a lot of cutting on my surface, so I wouldn't want that to happen on this mat, so I just use the smaller one. So I'm going to start out by doing the entire background first, and then I'll mask off this area and add some more color to the background. So I have some wild honey, mustard seed, and I just keep my inkers on top of them when I'm working with them, scattered straw, and dried marigold. And what I'm going to do is start with the lightest color first, so I'll start with my scattered straw. And just ink this up really well and then work onto the paper. Okay, so I've added the scattered straw pretty much all over. Not worried about coverage that much at this point. Then I'm going to go back in with, I guess, my second lightest color, which is my mustard seed, and add some more yellow color to the main flower image. And my goal here is to have the flower be yellow-orange and the background to be red. So I've added the mustard seed, and now I'm going to go back in with some wild honey. Okay, so I've added the wild honey. You can see it's getting on my hands, but that's okay. And now some spice marmalade, and then I'm going to be focusing this on the inside, really. Okay. Then what I'm going to do is cut out my mask, and then I'll be able to stamp on the background without coloring over the flower. Okay, so I have my mask adhered with some just temporary adhesive, and you can see it's peeling up around the edges, but that's okay. It doesn't need to be on there very, very well. It just needs to be able to block the ink from getting through to the flower. So what I'm going to do, I have some worn lipstick distress ink, as well as some barn door and fired brick, and I'm just going to start adding these pinks and reds to the image to help define that edge and to really make the flower pop off the page. Now I'll go in with some barn door, and you can see that I'm actually holding down the masked image with my hand and kind of starting over it and moving off it. This makes sure, this just kind of safeguards against the ink getting underneath the mask. So that's some barn door, and now I'm going to go back in with the fired brick, especially making sure to get the edges. Okay, now before I reveal the mask, which is my favorite part of this whole activity, what I'm going to do is stamp over the background with a background stamp. So I'm going to ink it up with some vintage photo distress ink. Make sure it's inked up nice and well. So that's pretty well done. And now what I'm actually going to do is go back in with my vintage photo distress tool and just kind of dab over it to kind of pick up some of that ink to make it a little bit less perfect. And then I'm just going to lay my card down, making sure that one hand is always holding down the card. So there we go, it looks pretty good. And you can set this aside. I'm going to reveal the flower now. Ooh, that's pretty. Okay, so next what I'm going to do, I'm just going to add some barn door to the middle of this. Kind of bring it up to the rest of the card. And maybe add a little bit more red with this. And I think I'm just going to use the ink pad. Not quite red enough for me. So I'm going to add some more. And then any little streakies that you get when you do that, you can just go back in with the ink pad and kind of smooth them out. There we go, there. Now what I'd like to do is I'm going to do another technique that's one of my favorites of Jill's. I'm just going to take this spray bottle, spray my fingers with it, and then flick it. And I just love how that looks. So I just flicked it a little bit with water. And so that's looking nice and distressed. Actually, you know what? I'm going to use a little bit more water. I like that it's, there we go, missed it a little bit. That lets the colors blend really well together as well. So I have that little part done, and I'm going to put my mat off to the side. I have this as my card base, and now what I need to do is make this card part of the card match. So I think what I'm going to do with that is actually use just the fired brick around the edges. And actually, you know what? I will bring my mat back up for this. Actually, no, I won't. For this, I don't want the back of the card to get kind of messed up, so I'm just going to set it down like this on a clean sheet of paper. And I'm going to use the ink pad directly to the paper to color it. And I'm only have to do the edge because that's the only part that will show. So you're not really wasting that much ink here. And I kind of like that it's not complete coverage. It's kind of cool. And I can go back in with my barn door, since this is fired brick, I can go back in with barn door and kind of make those areas really blend in really well. So we have that. And I'm going to go back in with my barn door distress ink and just really work that red into the paper. And then maybe just a little bit of vintage photo on the edge of this main piece. It's pretty much dry now. Kind of distress it to match everything. So we have that inked. Now we can go ahead and adhere this down. Actually, what I want to do before I adhere this down is just make a really, really narrow white mat around this. So that's adhered down. And now what I can do is go ahead and stick it down to my mat, just like this. Actually, I will distress the edges a little bit, just a little bit. So now we're all good to go. I can just stick this down, again with my ATG. Okay. And now, the last thing that I'm going to do is add my sentiment. And for that, I think it would be cool to kind of staple it on with my Tim Holtz tiny attacher. So I'll get that out. And then what I'm going to do is ink a piece of paper with this same yellow. So what I'm probably going to do is use the wild honey and scattered straw just to ink a simple white piece of paper. Just going to trim this down a little bit. Just going to ink this just directly ink to paper, or ink pad to paper, I suppose. So I use the scattered straw, and then I'm just going to go in with the wild honey, just to make it really blend in. Okay, so that'll go pretty well on the card. Maybe a little bit of the mustard seed as well. Okay, and now what I'm going to do is stamp my sentiment. For this, since I used a friend background stamp, I think what I want to do is use I'm going to go with my Sophie Sentiments stamp set. I don't think this surprises anyone. I'm going to do the Friends Forever stamp. Since I used the friend background stamp, I feel like this is pretty fitting. So I'll grab my stamp lot here. And stamp this with my Memento Black. Perfect. So now I'm just going to trim this down and adhere it to my card. Okay, so I have my sentiment here, and this is about where I want to adhere it. And this is a little tricky because it is the inside fold of the card here, but what I can do is just maneuver it the best I can and try to get kind of that crisscrossing. So that's looking pretty good. And I'll just trim off the excess here. And then make sure to ink that edge. And then use a little adhesive. I'll probably just use a glue dot because it'll be easier to get under there. It's just a mini glue dot. So make sure that stays down pretty well. What I'm going to do is just do some stitching in the corner here with a similar color to this. So I'm going to go find this color. So I'll bring my mouse pad out again and use it to punch some holes in the corner here with my retractable craft pick from Ranger, which this is awesome. I hurt myself way less now that I have a retractable one. And Lord knows I'm accident prone, so just put these in here. You're going to have to make 4 dots going each way if you want 3 stitches. And that's usually what I stick to. And that's what I'm trying to do here, is create this rule of 3 so that I have a triangle of the pretty orange color. And that'll make it look balanced. Even if there is one thing on this side and 2 things on this side, it helps weigh it out. So I'm just going to stitch this and I'll be right back in a second. Okay, so I have my stitching done, and this completes the card for this week. So I hope you enjoyed the card this week. Here is a look at the final card. And I thank you very much for watching. Catch you again next week.